Hello, Dan. How are you?
Hey Maria, doing good, thank you.
We did a couple of recordings last on introducing our API endpoints. So all of the endpoints that exist today, both in production and also ones that we're currently developing and testing in beta. And we also talked about our language models. And so I wanted to take it a step further with you to help us understand how do our API endpoints power the workflows that we say that we support. So things like ambient document generation or ambient documentation, whatever names that customers are using to signify that particular workflow, dictation as well. So I thought we could spend some time looking at the endpoints visually and then how they map to the capabilities that they enable, I guess, and the workflows that then customers can build using multiple endpoints together. Sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good, and good choice of words there, and we'll help to try to clarify between endpoints, capabilities, and workflows, and hopefully
Perfect.
some oversimplified visuals help to tie it all together and make it, connect the dots.
Perfect. Yes. And I think you sensed my hesitation when I used the word capabilities versus workflows. So yeah, that'd be a good thing to clarify. And also, just before we go into the details, I think useful to call out that this story or narrative will become really clear in our publicly facing documentation as well. And so these slides just helped us to sort of visualize it, figure out how to visualize it, and then we'll get it out there in public as well.
Absolutely. The slides are just for cutting to the chase, simple visualizations, and we're actively working to make sure that all the details are available on docs.corti.ai. We have a lot of detail there now and a good rich information, but we're continuously refining that and making sure that the publicly facing information is consistent with our go forward messaging. So this is an opportunity to check that internally and make sure we have all the ducks in a row, and then we'll publicize in the same consistent manner.
Perfect. And one thing that we ask that you don't totally hold us to in perpetuity is some of the exact names for certain capabilities and workflows, because you probably heard them said in different ways. And so we'll try to call out where you might have heard different things. And it's also important to know that customers call things different industry terms. And so we'll call that out, and we'll make sure to communicate going forward too if there's any sort of norm setting that we need to do on these particular capabilities, endpoints as well, which names have changed lately in the past. But yeah, just something to consider as depending on when you're viewing this.
Yeah, good call out, right? The key is consistency, and we're trying to define our standard language and the way that we want to refer to things, but there will surely be synonymous terms that get used intentionally or unintentionally, right or wrong. So beware of that, and then try to always map back towards what's the correct, actual, formal, appropriate term that we defined internally.
Fantastic. So should we go into it, Dan?
All right, let's walk through. And the slides, like we said, are a way to conveniently summarize this detailed information and try to tie all the concepts together. And you'll see this coming forward on our formal public documentation. But the key here is try to visualize what each capability that our foundation models can support by way of our API endpoints. And so what we're saying there is that the API gateway, each endpoint is access to a foundation model for a specific purpose to deliver some capability. And we talk about, of course, that we have Solo, Ensemble, and Symphony foundation models. And this is a way to explain why and how we mean Solo can support speech recognition capabilities, Ensemble supporting content and document generation, Symphony supporting more powerful advanced use cases and functionality beyond what others in the industry are doing. And so here's a way to try to visualize and hopefully tie all the concepts together, because endpoints in and of themselves provide access to specific functionality. That it's a URL, an endpoint. What is an API endpoint? It's a web URL to access, in our case, an AI model. And what you see here is a list going across of all the endpoints that we also have listed, of course, on docs.corti.ai. And when a partner of ours is using their own platform, they're building an application to use our AI, they're doing that by calling one-to-many endpoints to support those different core capabilities. And so what you see here is that the recordings and transcript endpoint provide transcription functionality, where you can upload a recording, an audio file, and then call the transcripts endpoint to say, turn that recording into text. We also have a transcribe endpoint that provides dictation capability. Well, those words are very similar, but one's a noun and one's a verb. The noun is we have the ability to generate a transcript based on a recording. The transcribe endpoint, the verb, is using a web stream, real-time streaming audio with real-time text being returned. Similar capabilities of speech to text, but different modalities for how you use it. Then when you go to Ensemble, you have a document endpoint, templates endpoint, the codes endpoint. This is all about content generation, documents and codes. And once you have a transcript that was created, you can use that transcript to call the documents endpoint and create a document. To generate your document, you have to have a template. You have to define the structure for that document. And so we have a templates endpoint that's used just to manage all the different options for document structure. And we'll be coming out with an updated page on docs.cordy.ai this week that shows what are our standard out-of-the-box templates that are available. We also are defining a process for customers to request new templates using building blocks of existing templates, trying to limit the amount of the long tail of endless requests that we'll get, so that we can help customers bring consistency into documentation and not chase myriad endless combinations of what you might want in documentation, because that just increases the complexity and the challenge for what you want to do with AI. That's a story for another webinar, probably.
It is. I was literally just going to say that we will do another recording for sure on templates, because obviously as we scale, as we move towards a more self-service model as well, we need to make sure that we're putting ourselves in a position to make it as scalable as possible. More to come on that.
Absolutely. So the codes endpoint, you see here labeled as code prediction functionality. You might also hear that as code extraction or code abstraction. This is all about generating ICD-10 or CPT codes for a document, or you can also pass text into the endpoint. Right now, today, the 27th of March, we have this enabled at customer tenants individually, where we've trained a model specific to customer data, but we're active in development for a general purpose model that anybody can use out of the box. And then on top of that, we can do customer specific refinement. So we're hoping to have that out end of April, early May. So check back for a general model being available. But right now, the codes endpoint for code prediction, code extraction is used at a customer specific level. Then when you get to the Symphony tier, you see the differentiating factors that we have compared to other ambient document generation, ambient documentation players, where we can support a streaming similar to the transcribe endpoint. We take a real-time live audio stream and we can continuously return the transcript as the conversation is happening, as well as generate facts, identify specific atomic pieces of relevant clinical findings that are coming up during the dialogue, and helping to show clinicians the most pertinent salient points of the conversation, because nobody wants to read the transcript. Then the latter models here: alignment, classification, contextual check, contextual retrieval, predictive prompt explainability, and more to come in the future, are other advanced, powerful models that are unique to Corti, differentiating functionality. And again, I think we probably owe them their own talk here to go into what these capabilities are and why they're so impressive. But these are the kinds of demos that we show customers. And the real-time streaming, the real-time fact generation is impressive in and of itself. It's different than any other ambient in the market. But then these also then add on top of that of what else is possible with this healthcare AI platform.
Awesome. Yeah, that was super, super useful. I would say don't worry too much if you're viewing this on which exact endpoints are in which exact foundation model bucket right now, where the purpose of showing the nested foundation models here is more to just convey how our endpoints enable more and more complex workflows as you go down from solo to ensemble to symphony, first starting with transcription and dictation types of capabilities. Then with ensemble endpoints, it's more sort of structured text, more analysis on the text with code extraction or code prediction. And then with Symphony, it's the mixture of kind of the live stream, the facts approach, the additional advanced models that we will talk more and more about as we go into the future. So super helpful. And on the visual here, just to orient you to it again, it's like the gray box on the bottom is the Corti AI platform. Then the API gateway is where a user then can access the AI platform via the endpoints that are sticking up out of the gateway in a very cartoonish way. Here, it obviously doesn't look like this, but for all intents and purposes, we can think about it that way. And then the user platform is the whatever tool application that the user is building and plugging in our capabilities into via the accessing by the endpoints. Probably anyone technical listening to that probably is like, what is she saying? But hopefully it made sense. And so in the next couple of pages, we are going to go into the capabilities, but also even more so, how do you link them together to create workflows? So if I'm a customer saying, well, I want to use Cordy to build an ambient scribe or to build ambient documentation, we're going to talk through how they would interact with it to make that come to life, in addition to more workflows on top of that.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, our technical friends can shield their eyes. This is definitely an oversimplified introduction to what goes into building an app on these APIs. And likewise, our graphic designer friends can shield their eyes on this oversimplified visual, and we'll happily accept your help to make a prettier version that we can publicize. All right, so should we walk through a couple examples?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so let's build the complexity left to right. When we start with just traditional transcription, we want to create an interaction. That's the foundational unit of how we link all the subsequent requests together. Number one, create an interaction. Then I'm going to upload a recording. And then step 3, I'm going to use that recording to generate a transcript. 3 requests to support one workflow, one deliverable, one functionality. That would generally be under this world of transcription. And we call it conversational because we do support regular, individual speaker talking, but we can also do conversational transcript generation through this workflow.
Simple. That's easy.
But then I want to do real-time transcription. I want to do live front-end dictation where I can put my cursor on the screen and I can dictate and see the words show up. I want to do voice commands, new line, new paragraph, insert my template. That's possible through the dictation functionality of the transcribe endpoint. And I think dictation is essentially transcription plus commands and control. And so this is, as Chad has highlighted, we're not a DMO, we're not an M-modal fluency, we're not competing directly with those packaged products, but we provide the underpinnings of that a customer can use to build that type of product functionality, or to embed transcription, to embed like the dictation capability directly into their EHR or their workflow application.
Cool.
So we're not the fully packaged desktop app ourselves, but we provide the means for partners of ours to build web-based dictation tools.
So Dan, one thing I noticed on this page is that the interactions endpoint is not colored in, meaning it's, I guess, not used in this request sequence. So why is that the case when we think about interactions as like the basic unit that other things are tied to?
Yes, because in this case, it would be what's considered stateless, meaning I don't have to have all my dictation output associated with an interaction for reference later on. I'm using a web stream to upload audio packets and get textual output, to get command recognition output. And then we're not persisting that. We're not saving it for then later using to generate a document or any other functionality. So this is a stateless workflow where we're processing audio in real time and returning it to the client application for them to inject it wherever their cursor is located, wherever they're putting the output.
Got it. Makes perfect sense. And so just to tie this also to the video that we did with Henrik on the dictation SDK, the SDK instructions or what have you would all be referring to this transcribe endpoint as what they're primarily interacting with.
Correct. The dictation SDK calls this transcribe endpoint to provide the functionality. It takes the transcribe endpoint capabilities and wraps it around a starter code base that people can use to bootstrap their application. It handles some of the complexities, as Henrik explained, of microphone device management, of making these requests to the service, and just makes it very easy to get started with building that web-based dictation integration.
Right. Okay. Awesome. That makes sense to me. I think helpful to put it in the context of this as well.
Yeah.
So
and
those
if a customer
are
so if a customer already had their own recorder, they already had all that stuff built out, they don't need to use our SDK. They can call the transcribe endpoint to do that same functionality.
Easy. Sounds easy.
Awesome.
Those are the two I think primary solo, if you think solo, types of workflows / capabilities, which are kind of synonymous when we talk about solo. You'll still see how the other ones are a bit more complex and capabilities come together to form a workflow. But for solo, it's primarily the conversational transcription and the classic dictation.
That's right. And that should hopefully make sense when you look at the PR we've put out. The way that we describe solo is that speech, powerful speech recognition model, fast and efficient and focused on this capability. Then when you say, well, dictation is a thing of the past, and there's lots of dictation options out there. Corky's is the best, of course, but we know that there's excitement in the world around ambient document generation. And one key thing before even getting to the diagram, this slide is titled document generation, the verb, because that's what we're doing, right? We're using our AI platform and accessing it through these web requests to generate documents. So we're trying to be specific in the capability that we're supporting. Whereas the noun of ambient documentation would be kind of the package solution that uses this capability. Subtle differences, just wanted to describe the language. You can refer to them obviously similarly. In this case, in this workflow, we would refer to this on our website as well as asynchronous ambient documentation, where you create an interaction, you upload a recording, the recording is used to generate a transcript, and then you call the documents endpoint and generate a document. The documents endpoint will use a transcript. In the document request, you define the transcript that you want to use, and then the note output is the delivery here.
And this then, as I look at it, is kind of what you had shown 2 slides ago on the conversational transcription sequence, 1, 2, and 3, and then adding in that document part of the document generation part of the workflow to bring it all together to run ambient document generation. And I think you said that it is using I think you said transcripts, but I think you meant templates in the background.
Oh, yes. Sorry about that. Correct.
What is that?
The document endpoint uses a template.
And what does it mean that it's shaded light colored and not part of the actual request sequence, but still part of the workflow?
Yes, sorry for misspeaking there. So the documents endpoint uses a template that's defined and you can access through the templates endpoint. And again, it's an oversimplified visualization, but you can make a request to the templates endpoint and saying, show me all the templates available for my organization. And in that output, you're just going to get the template details. And you'll see, okay, I have 3 templates available. This one has a template key of SOAP note. That's the one that I want. I want to use that SOAP template key to generate my document. Actually, I want to create a second document. I also want to generate a patient summary. So you can call the document endpoint a second time and define a different template key and get a different document output. So that's where, again, there's a lot of different combinations that people can do here. You don't have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 over and over. You do 1, 2, 3 when you generated your transcript. Then you call the documents endpoint to get your SOAP note. Now I want the patient summary. I call the documents endpoint again, but with a different template key defined.
Cool. So you could call the templates endpoint to return all the template keys or template options that you have available to you. But if you already know the key that you want, you can just call the documents endpoint with reference to that template key, and it'll somehow interact with the templates endpoint, but you don't necessarily need to have it as part of the request sequence. So that's the nuance there.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right.
Makes sense to me.
Great.
What's next? Unless you have anything else to add on that one. Okay, code prediction.
Yep, code prediction. So this is similar in the sense that the codes endpoint, we do that in concert with an interaction. We uncolored the recording transcripts and transcribe, but you see we have documents shaded. And the reason is, in this case, you want to generate and predict codes in reference to a document. So you have to say, what am I coding for? You're coding a document. And so if we built on the prior, let's say we generated that note, it's associated with the interaction. And now you can say, give me the codes for that document that's on that interaction.
So if you were you could actually also link this workflow code prediction onto the ambient documentation. So you could do ambient documentation plus code prediction, and it would basically be what we just described, plus then this additional part of the sequence.
Yeah, and I think we have one of those combos coming up.
Oh, shoot. That's a combo. That's a little bit of an Easter egg to come.
We bury the lead, That's okay. We'll get to that one. But before we jump to that, though, the interim step, though, is talking about what's amazing about Corti ambient document generation capabilities. And that is that we can do it real time. And I mentioned the previous example of ambient was what we refer to as asynchronous, other than the market would think that it's real time. We could probably do a talk about that too.
We will.
And it's asynchronous from the AI platform perspective, right? And the raw, just how do you call the endpoints? You're doing it serially after the recording has happened. So it absolutely is asynchronous. Our terminology is correct. From the user perspective, I'm sitting in front of my computer. I just finished my recording. Now I want to have a note generated. To them, it's real time. I'm getting it back while I'm sitting here. So it's all about perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That's the preview of that talk.
So just to like put a pin in that though, Dan, what you just said is you were linking back to our ambient document generation flow, which is multiple steps. Some people in the market, some customers think about it as real time because you press generate note and it happens right after the fact, but that's different than our workflow on the next couple of pages that we were just on with the stream and fax endpoint. So if you go back to that, that's where that topic that we just both of us just alluded to, we can talk more about, but it's different than this one.
It is. And again, I think it's about user perspective. User perspective is that 2 years ago, when I did ambient document generation, it took 4 hours. A human was in the loop. That was clearly asynchronous. And now that I click generate and AI is processing it and returning it to me within 30 to 60 seconds, that feels real time. So if that's the user perspective. From the AI platform perspective, that is asynchronous processing, which is different than what we're capable of doing with real-time processing. And in real time, while the audio stream is happening, while we're recording audio, we are incrementally calling the transcribe endpoint and the fax endpoint to create the transcript, return the transcript real time while the conversation's happening, not asynchronously after the fact. And also, we're incrementally calling the fax endpoint to return fax. And this, again, is unique to Corti. And there's a lot of, it demos very well, right? People see the real-time nature of these fax being returned while the conversation's happening every 60 seconds or so. So if you just do like a 30-second demo, you're going to say, I don't see fax generating real time, but keep talking for another minute and a half or 2 minutes, and you'll see fax coming back incrementally throughout the dialogue. That is impressive to anyone that's already seen legacy existing ambient documentation solutions. But the real opportunity is we then let our integration partners do something with those facts in real time. And that real time could matter if it's a 30-minute consultation, a really complex visit, you're treating a patient for cancer or some complex disease. And if you start detecting facts that indicate potential medication interactions, or, well, hey, did you know there's a family history of this and the patient has this condition, it means something else. We can start enabling our, again, integration partners that receive these facts to then kick off other processes behind the scenes. And that's where I think the future is going to come in this area, because it's all about, being proactive and predictive and what you want to do with information and with AI in real time while things are happening, and not after the fact and continuously then saying, oh, you just did a visit, here's all these other things you have to do.
And that's why I think,
but this is unique.
I think that's where it's important on the nomenclature here that we're describing what this request sequence is doing, which is enabling real-time conversational transcript and fact extraction, not necessarily real-time AI scribe. Because as Dan just described, there's a lot more that's possible with the capabilities that we unlock here with fax. I think the other thing to just call out is this is if you're familiar with the API demos, you've probably seen them either at HIMSS or Henrik when he shared them for the first time. This is I forgot what it's called, but live fact generation, or we've called it a couple of different things over time, but it's where you can kind of toggle between the two panes where the transcript is being created and then you see the facts popping up on the other pane with some of the types of extracts that from the transcript or from the conversation that Dan just described.
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes we use the terminology live here. It's live conversational transcript and fact generation or fact extraction. And that live real-time nature of doing this AI processing is what's unique. That's differentiating just from an ambient perspective, that's the workflow that clicks with people now. But our goal, our hope, I think the promise and opportunity is that we're opening up a new world of potential of what do you do with real-time AI. And so that's, I think, what's exciting for innovators and other vendors looking to integrate with our platform.
Amazing, perfect. And so the primary requests to the key endpoints here are obviously starting the interaction and then the stream, opening up the stream, and then it's the workflows interacting with transcribe and fax as endpoints as well. But those two are the primary requests that would need to be made.
That's correct. Yep. You create an interaction. When you create the interaction, you get back your interaction ID, which is used to connect all the dots. And then you also receive the web streaming URL, and it's the web-based URL that you use to open that stream, to process the audio. And behind the scenes, that's where it's calling those other endpoints, hence the oversimplified shading differences here to try to tell that story.
Cool. And I think in our endpoint video, we talked a little bit more about the stream and the WebSocket stuff. And if we didn't, then we'll do another one on it, but we don't have to get into it here.
That sounds good. All right. So then, like I think we talked about before, we have you can combine these workflows, and if you want to do, after you do your stream, you can then say, I want to then generate a document. So you, as part of that interaction, you call the document endpoint. You can select which facts you want to include in your document that's being generated. And then you can say, well, actually, I want to make a different set of selections of facts and generate a second document. So that's where, again, the endpoints and the way that the API operates allows our users, our integrating partners, to define what options you have, what workflow you want to build. We're not shoehorning anyone into any workflow, which is why we talked on our very first slide about capabilities. What capabilities we provide? We provide flexibility to build a lot of different workflows. And so that's expressed through the user interface of the application. And so Corti Assistant is one example of that. You have workflows to capture audio, see facts and transcripts generated real time, select which facts you want, generate a note, make different selections, select a different note template, have a different note output. And likewise, our partners can do the same and build bespoke workflows for their needs.
Yeah, great point about Corti Assistant, basically doing that sort of combo. And this also, what Dan just described about how these capabilities are like modular, and customers can use them how they like, also depending on what tools they already have at their disposal, if they want to add something of ours or use our whole platform for all of it. Nikolai and Victor also talked about that being really resonating with customers or prospects at HIMSS, which is like how modular this whole sort of platform allows you to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I hope is ringing through here, that and why the request sequence and the coloring is very oversimplified intentionally, because it's not only this, it's an example of the art of the possible.
Very cool. And I think we have one more combo to talk through, which maybe is where I Easter egged.
Yeah, and the combo is just building on that story, right? So we had real-time conversational transcript and fact extraction that you can then use. You can make selections about what facts you care about to generate a note. And then we say, well, I have a note, now give me the codes. So just want to show, again, you can build the complexity, you can stack together requests to do more and more things, or you can use one endpoint for one individual thing. There's no one right or wrong way to do it. It depends on what problem you're trying to solve.
That's why the slide flipping is so fun, because you could see kind of how the sequence builds. Awesome. That was really helpful. There's a few things like natural language dictation and other stuff that we haven't talked about here, and we'll do more sessions on, same with the alignment and all that stuff, live versus real time versus asynchronous. There's a lot of sort of offshoots that we can do from here, but I think this is a really helpful place to start when you think about how to link together the endpoints that we've told you about, the workflows that we say that we enable, how customers are thinking about how they can actually interact with the API to build some of those things. So hopefully that was helpful.
Yep. Thanks for talking through it.
Cool. Thank you, Dan. See ya.
See you later.